Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bill Cloud here. This is On This Day. Today is the 14th day of Adar. And according to tradition, it was on this day that Moses was circumcised in Egypt. His circumcision would have occurred in a very troubling time for Hebrew parents who saw the birth of a male child, considering that the Pharaoh of that day had ordered their deaths. Now later, Moses will be hidden in a basket. He was placed upon the Nile, only to be discovered by Pharaoh's daughter. I mean, think of it. He was saved by the daughter of the man who was trying to kill him. It says in Exodus 2, "Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him and said, 'This is one of the Hebrews' children.'" Now, how did this woman immediately recognize that this child was a Hebrew? Here's a possibility. She saw that the child was circumcised. And if so, that circumcision was a sign that identified him. Circumcision goes all the way back to Abraham, at least that far, who was commanded to be circumcised and to circumcise all that were in his house. It says that in Genesis 17. "This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. Every male child among you shall be circumcised, and you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male child in your generations. He who is born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner who is not your descendant, he who is born in your house and he who is bought with your money must be circumcised, and my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant." So here we see that circumcision is regarded as a sign of the covenant, which is, as we said, most likely why Moses was identified as a Hebrew. Now, there are other commands in Scripture that the Almighty said were to serve as signs between God and Israel. Shabbat's one of these signs. Tefillin, or phylacteries, is another of these signs. God instructed His people with unique commands designed to demonstrate that they are in covenant with Him and that they are His people. So then, circumcision is a physical, tangible sign that's intended to identify the males of His people. But identify them to whom? I mean, who is supposed to see this? I mean, considering the sensitive nature of circumcision and its location on the man's body, it doesn't seem to have been intended as a sign to the public. Obviously then, this sign would have been intended to be between God and the man, between a man and his Creator. In other words, it was personal and to a very large degree, private. Now, other signs of the covenant, like tefillin and Shabbat, could be considered outward signs that say to everyone, I'm keeping God's commands. I'm one of His people. But the question is, though, if someone exhibits these physical markers, does that necessarily mean that they are in a true relationship with the Creator? And to answer that, we just look at what Paul has to say on the matter. "For circumcision is indeed profitable if you keep the law. But if you are a breaker of the law, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. Therefore, if an uncircumcised man keeps the righteous requirements of the law, will not his uncircumcision be counted as circumcision? And will not the physically uncircumcised, if he fulfills the law, judge you who, even with your written code and circumcision, are a transgressor of the law? For he is not a Jew who is one outwardly, nor is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, not in the letter, whose praise is not from men, but from God." So what Paul seems to be saying is, even though you can find these things in the Bible, your outward signs are pointless if you're not circumcised in your heart. Those who don't have the physical outward trappings of righteousness, but yet who are circumcised of the heart, it is as if they bear that physical marker. Furthermore, Paul made it clear that Abraham, our spiritual father, was blessed while he was still uncircumcised. And here's why: because he believed God. That's why it was accounted unto him as righteousness. He was already circumcised in his heart. What Paul said regarding circumcision, by the way, is not a New Testament concept. It's actually one that originated with Moses. Long ago, he told Israel that they must cease from being stiff-necked and that they must circumcise the foreskin of their hearts. And so the point is this. Though God does instruct us to do things that have physical manifestations, and by the way, if he tells us to do something, there's a good reason for it. But we should do these things because it's in our heart to do them. We should obey him because we love him and because we believe him. To do things for any other reason is just an exercise in religion. And so let's be circumcised in our hearts, whether we're male or female, young or old. Let us all have a heart to follow our Father and do what he says to do, but because we love him. Thanks for joining me today. We'll see you tomorrow. Shalom.
Like what you're hearing? Become a Bill Cloud Premium Partner to watch or listen to hundreds of hours of teachings and resources on demand. Go to BillCloud.com/subscribe to start watching today.